Hello and welcome to Fred in the Shed. Now before I start this video, a disclaimer: I am not a mechanic, I am not trained in any way to work on cars, so if this video helps you and you decide to follow it as a guide, please remember you will be doing so at your own risk. Our Mini is the Mark I BMW Mini, the R50 or the R53, made up to 2006. Sadly, the little Mini suffered from quite a severe water leak into the boot area, but happily I was able to fix it. And if you follow this video, I'll take you through step by step what I did. I'll show you any fixings and fittings that you may have to remove. I'll also show you what products I used to fix the water leak, and any parts that I bought I will show you, and also include the UK prices. If you're watching this video, then this is all too familiar for you. Water leaks in the Minis normally starts off, you'll notice that the boot carpet is quite wet. When you lift it up, you find that this foam underneath becomes saturated, and in our case, the little tool area in the bottom of the boot was completely underwater and all of the tools had become rusted. These are the three basic tools that I used for the job. The first one is a metal pronged pry bar, very good at getting clips out. If you haven't got one of these, that's fine, you can use a flat headed screwdriver. And then finally, a plastic lever tool is very useful as not to scratch the paint when you have to take off panels. The first thing I would suggest you do is to remove the boot carpet itself, and you can take that indoors and start drying that out. They do dry out quite quickly. If you look along the boot edge where it meets the seats, you'll see it's got two of these black plastic little clips, and you need to remove those. Here's one that I removed to give you an idea. You'll see there's a centre pin. This needs to be prized out before you can get the main clip out. And again, using a flathead screwdriver or a pry tool if you've got it, first get it under the centre pin and then very carefully pry that out. Once you get your fingers to it, you can pull that out and remove it, and then use the pry bar again, get it under the main clip, and that should just pop out quite easily. Once those two little plastic clips are out, you can then go ahead and pull the carpet from between the back seat rest and the base, and then the carpet will just pull out. I'd suggest that you squeeze out most of the water out of the foam and then just leave it standing upright somewhere and let it drain. It drains off surprisingly quick, and it should dry in a couple of days. Next part is, where is all this darn water coming from? Well, the first place that I would suggest you look is the seal around the third brake light on top of the hatch. After some internet research, it turns out that these are notorious for letting in water, mainly because of a cheap and nasty seal which cracks and becomes porous over time. What was happening on our Mini was the water was getting in here, running around all this plastic trim and then into the hatch itself, where it was running down the bottom, and then finally coming out of these two little drain holes at the bottom of the hatch. This is past the main seal for the boot, and this was easily overpowering the rubber, and then the water was getting into the boot, and quite a lot was getting in as well. It's very easy to test if this is where your water's coming from. Just get a hose pipe or watering can and completely soak the third brake light. You might see water dripping from inside the rear screen, or if not, just wait for a few minutes and you'll probably see it coming out of the bottom of your hatch. Now for the tough bit, because that seal is not available from BMW as a separate part. If you want to replace the seal, they'll sell you a whole new rear third light, and that retails for about £60 here in the UK. And I've got to be honest with you, when you take the light out and look at it, I don't think it's worth that. If you want to replace the third light, I would say look for an aftermarket product, because to me they look better and they actually seem better quality than the real thing. On our Mini, the third light, it was a little corroded, but it was actually working, so I decided to keep the cost down. I was just going to keep it, but I couldn't reuse the seal because it was all broken down, so I was now going to have to reseal this light back into the hatch. To do this, all I used was very cheap and very simple clear silicone that you can get almost anywhere. Obviously, to seal the light, you're going to have to remove it or partially remove it. And in this circumstance, less is more, because if you have a Mini 1 without the roof spoiler, this job is going to be a whole lot easier. If, on the other hand, like us, you have the Cooper or the Cooper S with the roof spoiler, this job is going to be technically a little bit more difficult. Because incredibly, and it is incredible it seems, that BMW, when they designed the roof spoiler, they didn't allow for the fact that at some point in the future you might want to remove that third brake light. And it is absolutely impossible without breaking the light to remove it with the spoiler attached. The spoiler itself is fixed to the rear hatch via 2 bolts, but then they had another Einstein moment and they decided to bond it with adhesive just for good measure, which makes it almost impossible to remove without damaging it. But there is a way around this, and I will show you that in just a moment. First part of removing the light is very easy, especially if you have the Mini 1 without the spoiler. If you look at the top of the tailgate, on the inside there are 3 torque screws. All you have to do is just remove those. With those 3 screws removed, you'll find that although the light won't come out of its holder, you'll be able to lift it up about 5mm, and this leaves enough space that you can get some silicone and just sort of squirt it round the bottom edge and slightly up to the sides. And I would recommend trying this first before you go the whole way of removing the light, because this might be all that you need to stop the water leak, and it will save quite a bit of work. Unfortunately, it didn't work for me, so I had to take the light out. Now, to take the light out, you need to only slightly ease up that spoiler. You're not going to completely remove it. But if you look on the top of the tailgate, you'll see there are 2 little plastic caps at the ends. You want to take those off, and inside there you will see 2 10mm nuts that attach the spoiler to the tailgate. You don't want to completely undo those nuts and take them off, because it seems that the tailgate is double lined and you might lose them. Just loosen those off to the end of their threads so it takes the pressure off of those mountings when we lift the spoiler itself. Now, for this next stage, this is the bit where it's not for the faint-hearted. Please, please, please take a deep breath. Take your time with this. Do not rush this. Get yourself a couple of plastic wedges, or maybe something made out of wood, something soft. Do not use metal screwdrivers for this. And then just either side of that third brake light, very, very carefully slide them under the spoiler and apply some pressure. What will happen is you'll find that the spoiler will slightly lift. Now, we're only talking about a very small amount of lift here. We need approximately 3 to 5mm gap at the top of that brake light to allow the unit to come out. Don't go heavy-handed with this and risk cracking that spoiler. You're just looking for a very, very slight lift. Just pry it a little bit, see if you can get the light out. Don't force it, pry it a little bit more, and then you'll find that the light will clear the spoiler and it will come out. Just please, please, please take your time with this process. Once you've got the light out, and I just left it hanging by the wire, you can go ahead and clean up the aperture and then apply some fresh silicone. Use plenty of it, because you can always wipe it clean with your finger afterwards. Don't be sparing at this stage. As I showed you earlier, the foam seal was so badly deteriorated I decided not to refit that, just to rely on the silicone. And the red lens on the light itself, it's so badly made that simply fell off when I removed the light, so that went back onto the light unit also with a bead of silicone. And that's it. Hopefully you're done. Leave the silicone about 24 hours to completely cure. Again, spray some water with a watering can or a hose pipe, and hopefully you won't get any more leaks. That should be your problem solved. For me, unfortunately, no, I still had leaks and I still had problems. So if you're in that situation, it's a little bit tough, but carry on watching the video and I'll show you the next steps that I took to cure the leak. On our Mini, I noticed there was still a small amount of water coming in at the bottom of the boot, mainly in the right hand corner and also around the lock mechanism. So I decided that I was going to have to replace the boot seal. Now you'll notice that I've taken off this bottom panel here on the boot, so let me show you how I did that, because it allows you to see the seal better. First job is to bend back the rubber boot seal where it overlaps the plastic boot panel. Now note at this stage that the boot panel not only goes over the lock, but also there's a small section that goes under as well. So that's important when we remove it, that we don't force it and break that part. If you look at the bottom of the panel, you'll see there's 3 of those plastic clips. These are exactly the same as the ones that we took out of the carpet to remove that. And it's the same process. You simply pull out the center pin with a pry bar, and then once you've got the center pin out, you can then pull out the main clip. Once you've got all 3 clips out, grab the panel from the bottom and then carefully pull it away from the boot seal itself. There are some clips that should pop, not a problem, and then just ease it over the lock mechanism. Once the panel is off, we can just see those 4 little yellow plastic clips that you have to be aware of. Next thing I did was to check the boot seal itself to see if I could see any splits or tears. I couldn't find any, but I noticed that inside the seal in the air channel it was holding water, and also the seal seemed to be pulling away from the area near the lock, and this is where the water was getting in. So in the end we decided that it was best to bite the bullet and buy a complete new boot seal. You can get boot seals for the Mini as aftermarket parts on eBay and Amazon, and they are cheaper than the main dealer parts. We decided that we just didn't want to risk it, so we bit the bullet and ordered this directly from BMW Spares, and yeah, it wasn't cheap. It came to £96 UK, and that was not delivered, that was picked up. Here is the parts number if you want to buy an original seal yourself, so pause the video now and you might want to write this down. Thankfully, after that shock of the price, it's very easy to remove. It doesn't appear to be stuck on with adhesive. There's a little bit of white putty on the seal, but it can very simply be carefully pulled away from the car. Absolutely, probably the easiest part of this whole job was removing the old boot seal. One thing that did impress me with this genuine seal was that running inside it was a thin piece of rubber tubing that when you fit the seal you can pull this out, and it allows the outer seal to overlap the panels of the car. So it gets a thumbs up for that. It's always a good idea just to wipe round the lip where the seal is going to go on. You do get a little bit of dirt underneath the old seal. It has got this white putty, this sealant. I tried to leave as much of that on as possible, didn't want to remove that. I thought that might help the new seal take hold. Started at the bottom with the new seal. There is a join piece and that lines up with the boot lock, so that's nice and easy. And then just a simple case of lining it up to the lip and pushing it on. It does help if you've got 2 people because it tends to twist around, but if you take your time you'll be absolutely fine. Just watch the corners, you make sure you don't get it twisted on the corners. They take a little bit more pressure to put on, but like I say, take your time and you'll be absolutely fine. And then finally, just to make sure it was completely home, I had the rubber handle of a socket wrench, and I just went round and give it a gentle tap all the way round. Remember that piece of rubber I showed you in the seal? Well, the very last thing you have to do is just pull that through and it lifts the rubber over the edges of the panels, and for some strange reason I found this quite satisfying to do. It worked really, really well. Well, after all that work, a sealed in third brake light, a new boot seal, I was pleased to say that our water leak was cured, and hopefully yours will be too. However, if you're still getting water into your boot, there's only really 2 other places it can come in. One is the boot handle and the other is the shaft from the motor on the rear wash wipe. So it's already gone over 13 minutes this video. I'll do just one more little bit extra. I'll just show you how to remove the rear hatch. It's easier to show you here with the panel off, but basically there are 6 long Phillips screws that you have to remove all around the edge of the panel. Once you've got the screws out, and I'll just turn the panel over here in a minute and I'll show you, there are plastic little catches. Some of them have little metal spring clips all around the outside, and those have to be carefully popped from the steel tailgate. And here you are, this is the same thing from the inside of the tailgate. You can see the little plastic slits here where the screws go in, and obviously the holes where the clips go. Once again, it's better that you don't use a screwdriver, something non-metallic, but starting at the bottom, you slide this around the edges, feeling for the clips and just gently lever them out. They will sort of come out with quite a snap. Once you've got the panel off, you can just check for water leaks around the motor shaft and the boot handle. I didn't have to do that because I'd already cured my leak. To put the panel back, start in the middle, push the clips back till they snap, and then go carefully around the outside edge. Don't force it. If the clips don't line up, then just pull it off slightly and do it again. They're very easy to break. And then finally, just put your 6 screws back in and your job's done. Well, there you go. It's a long video. I really hope this has helped you. If it has, give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate that, and I hope that you've cured your Mini boot leak. Really annoying, but hopefully it was just the 3rd brake light and you fixed it. Well, that's it. Thanks for tuning in from Fred in the Shed. I'd like to say cheers, stay safe, and of course I'll catch you all on the next one. Bye bye now.